There's something very fascinating that happens in childbirth, and that is that the process of childbirth reflects the divine process of creation. God creates mankind in His image, in her image, in its image, and therefore everything that goes on inside the human internally and our processes reflect a divine process. So when God creates the world, it mirrors the conception and birth of a human being. This might get a bit esoteric, but if you hang with me, it'll make sense. A new child that's born is literally a miracle, every single child. We're having two human beings coming together and creating a third human being. In science, this is called abiogenesis, where new life pops into this child at some point. You have matter that is not living, that's chaotic, that's disorganized, and at some point it gets imbued with soul, with life, with consciousness. And that emerges as a new creature, as a new birth, and as a miracle. The child is initially in the mother, right? And one with the mother. The child, whatever the mother eats, the child eats. Whatever the mother feels, the child feels. When the mother heart beats, the child heart beats. But then at some point, the child becomes to be individuated, where it becomes its own entity, until it leaves and takes its own first breath, and that is the moment of miracle. The Kabbalists tell us that we, likewise, are in God's womb. We are surrounded by God, we are one part of God, and our heart beats with God's heart. But there is a moment of creation, which we just celebrated with Rosh Hashanah, where the child, both the global child, which we all are a part of, and the individual child leaves the mother's womb and begins to take its own journey. The hardest part for a parent is to allow the child, which was once a part of them and still is in many ways, to begin to become its own being, its own entity, its own existence. It's difficult to give it its space. And that is what happens in creation, where God creates space for creation, creates a void, a vacuum, the Tzimtzum, as it's known in Kabbalah, and in that space, there emerges a seed of creation, which then sprouts and gives birth to the child. Every single new child, every single new life that comes into this world is a potential, a Messianic potential, according to the Kabbalists, a potential for redemption, for hope, for love, for peace. Because if you watch children are, according to the Kabbalists, according to the mystics, they are at the state of ultimate existence. They're not worrying about the future, worrying about where the next paycheck is coming from, about where the next meal is coming from. They're not worried about the past. How did I look in that conversation? How are people perceiving me? They're not self-conscious. In developmental psychology, according to Piaget, the child doesn't even know that it is a separate existence from the rest of the world. Because when the child's in the mother, it is one with all its surroundings. And as it comes into the world, it is still one with everything until it begins to develop its own individual identity and ego and consciousness. We have the capacity to get back to that childhood state by watching our children, by learning from them, by seeing how they interact with one another and with the world around them, with curiosity, with fascination, with presence. You ever see a child crawl along and bump into something ordinary and just marvel at it and stare at it as if nothing in the world matters? Because the child doesn't see anything else as separate from it, as outside of it. Everything is just part of the child. Until we begin to learn differentiations and distinctions, there's me and you, there's us and them, there's bad and good. For the child, these don't exist. And therefore, the Messianic potential in the child is that we can watch our own children and learn to not create those barriers and distinctions. Learn to go back, to return to that space of simplicity, of innocence, of forgiving, of kindness, of acceptance. And there's a process of re-emerging back into the cosmic womb. And that, in short words, is the miracle of childbirth, according to Kabbalah.